Hello folks, this is Jason from Mysterious Wilderness, and tonight we're heading deep into the misty hills of West Virginia to unravel one of the most terrifying and perplexing encounters in UFO history, the legend of the Flatwoods Monster. In 1952, a group of locals stumbled upon something they would never forget. A mysterious craft crashed into the woods, and when they went to investigate, they found themselves face to face with a towering, glowing-eyed entity unlike anything they had seen before. Was this an extraterrestrial visitor, a military experiment gone wrong, or just a case of hysteria and mistaken identity? In this video, we'll piece together the eyewitness accounts, explore the compelling theories, and try to separate fact from fiction. But be warned, this story isn't for the faint of heart, because what those people saw that night still haunts the town of Flatwoods to this day. It was the evening of September 12, 1952, in the small town of Flatwoods, West Virginia, a quiet, rural community where nothing out of the ordinary ever seemed to happen. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, something unearthly shattered the calm. A group of local boys were out playing when they saw a blazing object streak through the evening sky, crashing somewhere beyond the trees and hills outside of town. The object seemed to glow from within, as if it were still burning. Convinced they had just witnessed something incredible, perhaps even a downed aircraft or meteorite, they ran to tell the nearest adult. The boys quickly found Kathleen May, the mother of two of them, and described what they had seen. Intrigued, she gathered a small search party, including local National Guardsman Eugene Lemon, and set off toward the woods to investigate. The group was a mix of adults and children, about 7 people in total, carrying only a few flashlights and fearless curiosity that often accompanies the unknown. But as they hiked up the hill toward the crash site, they had no idea that what they were about to find would become one of the most famous UFO encounters in American history. As they approached the site, a strange, pungent mist hung in the air. The closer they got, the stronger the burning metallic scent became, something almost chemical, unnatural. It clung to the back of their throats, making their eyes water and their stomachs churn. And then, just beyond the trees, they saw it, a glowing object partially hidden in the brush, pulsating with a dim, reddish light. But the real terror was not the glowing object, it was what stood next to it. A towering figure emerged from the darkness, at least 7 to 10 feet tall, its head shaped like a pointed spade with piercing red eyes that seemed to glow in the night. Its body appeared metallic, shimmering like burnished steel, and its long, claw-like hands extended as if reaching for them. As the group stared in horror, frozen in place, the creature suddenly emitted a hissing noise, like pressurized steam escaping from a valve. Then, without warning, it began to glide toward them, not walking, not running, but floating. Panic erupted. Screaming, stumbling, gasping for air, the group turned and ran as fast as they could back toward town, the nauseating mist still clinging to them. By the time they reached safety, their nerves were shattered. Several of them, including Kathleen May and Eugene Lemon, reported feeling ill, suffering from burning eyes, nausea, and weakness, symptoms eerily similar to radiation exposure. Their story quickly spread throughout the town, and soon the authorities were involved. But by the time investigators arrived at the site, whatever had been there was gone. Only a lingering, unexplained residue remained. The Flatwoods Monster had come and gone, but the fear and speculation it left behind would remain for decades to come. What did the townspeople really see that night? A crashed UFO and its occupant? A military experiment gone wrong? Or something far more ordinary? The investigation was just beginning, but the story was already taking on a life of its own. Fear has a way of warping perception, especially in the dead of night and in the presence of the unknown. But the descriptions given by the witnesses that night were shockingly consistent, all of them describing a towering entity unlike anything seen before. But what exactly did they see? Let's break down the terrifying details of the creature known today as the Flatwoods Monster. The creature was described as being between 7 to 10 feet tall, dwarfing any human standing before it. Its most striking feature was its head, not round or human-like, but shaped like a spade or an ace of spades. Some witnesses even recalled a glowing halo or hood-like structure surrounding the head. Then there were the eyes, massive, glowing, and deep burning red. They were so bright that some witnesses claimed that they could still see them burned into their vision after fleeing the scene. Many reports describe the eyes as fixed, unblinking, like they were watching, calculating, or waiting. The creature's body was another mystery entirely. Some described it as metallic, smooth, and armored, giving it an almost robotic or mechanical appearance. But others claimed that the figure had long, claw-like appendages with thin, spindly arms reaching out toward them. The way it moved was the most disturbing detail. It didn't walk, it glided, hovering just above the ground like it was weightless. As if its appearance wasn't terrifying enough, witnesses also reported a horrific, noxious mist that clung to the air around the entity. The smell was described as a sickening mix of sulfur, burning metal, and rotten eggs, enough to make their stomachs churn and their eyes burn. But here's where the mystery deepens. Flatwoods wasn't the only place where strange things were seen that night. Reports of a bright, fiery object came in from several states, leading many to believe that the creature the group saw was linked to something much larger. Was this an extraterrestrial being emerging from a crashed UFO? Or was it something else? A top-secret military project, an experimental machine, or even just a case of mass hysteria fueled by fear and the darkness? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The Flatwoods Monster left an impression that has lasted for decades, but in the days that followed, questions arose. Was there any physical evidence left behind? And what did investigators find when they returned to the site? The search for answers was just beginning. The morning after the terrifying encounter, Flatwoods was buzzing with fear and speculation. The witness's story had spread rapidly, and soon local authorities, reporters, and even military officials arrived to investigate the supposed crash site. What they found, or rather what they didn't find, only deepened the mystery. At the location where the group had seen the glowing object, investigators found several strange markings in the soil. Indentations, scorched earth, and disturbed vegetation, as if something heavy had landed there. Witnesses who visited the site claimed the ground was oddly warm and there was still a lingering smell of something chemical and burnt. Some even suggested that the tree branches in the area had been singed, as if exposed to extreme heat. Perhaps the most curious part of the investigation was the quick involvement of the U.S. military. Reports surfaced that members of the Air Force arrived shortly after news of the sighting spread. This was during the height of Blue Book, a top-secret military program aimed at studying UFO encounters and aerial phenomena. Could it be that the government knew more than they were letting on? And if so, why were they so quick to dismiss the sighting as something mundane? The Flatwoods Monster case has sparked decades of debate, with theories ranging from alien visitors to government conspiracies to military tests and simple misidentification. But which explanation, if any, holds the most weight? Let's break down the most popular theories surrounding that terrifying night in 1952. The most sensational theory, and the one that keeps UFO enthusiasts talking, is that the Flatwoods Monster was an extraterrestrial being. Witnesses described a bright, glowing object streaking across the sky and landing in the woods. Some believe that this was a crashed alien spacecraft. But if this was a real UFO incident, why was there no physical evidence of a craft? And why did the authorities dismiss the sighting so quickly? Another theory suggests that the Flatwoods Monster was not an alien, but a secret military experiment, possibly a prototype for an advanced flight suit or robotic reconnaissance device. Some speculate that the object in the sky was a military test aircraft, possibly carrying an unmanned or experimental robotic entity. The burning smell, sickness, and lingering radiation-like effects could point to exposure from an unknown chemical or fuel source. Of course, without any hard evidence, this remains speculation. But if something classified did crash in Flatwoods that night, the quick military presence could suggest that they were trying to cover it up before the public caught on. One of the most widely accepted skeptical explanations is that the Flatwoods Monster was nothing more than a barn owl, misidentified in the dark. According to this theory, the pointed spade-shaped head described by witnesses was actually the owl's facial disc, and the glowing red eyes were reflections from the group's flashlights. The clawed hands, possibly the owl's talons gripping a tree branch, and the floating movement, just the illusion of a startled owl gliding away. This explanation does make sense in some ways. It accounts for the shape and glowing eyes, and it would explain why the creature vanished without a trace. But does a barn owl really explain the sickening smell, the metallic-looking body, or the reports of glowing craft in the sky? Some remain unconvinced. Another theory suggests that the fireball seen in the sky was simply a meteor, part of the many celestial events that happen every year. Witnesses in Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, and West Virginia all reported seeing a bright object in the sky on the night of September 12, 1952. Astronomers later suggested it was a common meteor breaking apart as it entered the Earth's atmosphere. If you combine a meteor sighting, a group of people searching the woods at night, and an overwhelming sense of fear, it's easy to see how mass hysteria could have played a role. Could their minds have conjured a monster out of the shadows in fear? Or was there really something out there watching them? More than 70 years later, the Flatwoods Monster remains one of the most intriguing and controversial encounters in UFO history. So, was it a visitor from another world? A classified military experiment? Or just an owl in the wrong place at the wrong time? The mystery has never been fully solved. But for the people of Flatwoods, one thing is certain, something strange happened that night, and whether it was fact or folklore, the legend of the Flatwoods Monster will never be forgotten. The story of the Flatwoods Monster has endured for over 70 years, cementing its place in both UFO lore and small-town legend. What began as a terrifying encounter in the woods has grown into one of the most famous cryptid sightings in American history. Rather than shying away from the eerie tale, the town of Flatwoods, West Virginia has fully embraced its monster. Today, visitors from all over the world come to see the Flatwoods Monster Museum, where they can explore the history, examine old newspaper clippings, and see the many different artistic depictions of the creature. Even local businesses have joined in, selling Flatwoods Monster-themed merchandise from t-shirts to coffee mugs. But the legend doesn't stop in Flatwoods. Over the years, the Flatwoods Monster has appeared in movies, television, and even video games. The eerie, mechanical-looking being has been featured in shows like X-Files, cryptid documentaries, and most notably in the popular game Fallout 76. Which includes a version of the Flatwoods Monster as a mysterious in-game enemy. And let's not forget its connection to UFO lore, with the creature often appearing alongside famous extraterrestrial legends like the Mothman, Roswell aliens, and the Hopkinsville goblins. Despite all the explanations and skepticism, the question still lingers: what really happened that night in 1952? Were the witnesses simply mistaking, seeing an owl in the shadows, their minds shaped by fear and hysteria? Or did they truly come face to face with something not of this earth? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the story of the Flatwoods Monster has stood the test of time, continuing to fascinate, frighten, and inspire new generations of believers and skeptics alike. So, what do you think? Was the Flatwoods Monster a genuine extraterrestrial visitor, a government experiment, or just a barn owl and a case of mass hysteria? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your theories. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more strange and unexplained stories from Mysterious Wilderness. And if you'd like to help support the channel, You can do that by becoming a member here on YouTube or check out our Patreon page.